Hey folks, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another one of our weekly BOFURI discussion videos, and today we're here to talk all about episode 3. But before we get into that though, I do want to give a big thank you to those of you who shared last week's video over on Twitter. At Bubbalubber, at Sirius9752, at Matthew3645, and at Roman Mwangi3. Thanks so much for sharing last week's video, everybody, and if you too would like to have your name shouted out in next week's BOFURI video, then be sure to share this video around on the internet, and then tag me at JoJo Talks Too Much over on Twitter, and I will be sure to shout your name out in next week's video. Now then, with that said, we have a couple things that we have to get into in this week's video. We gotta talk about exploring level 1, or like what's left of level 1, and we have to talk about entering level 2, of course, and we gotta talk about the hype up for the second event, and that's towards the end of the episode. But before we get into anything, I do have to point out that the game finally gets some checks and balances. We opened the episode with Sally basically going over what Maple can and can't do, since I guess the developers saw what Maple is now capable of and immediately decided, yeah, we're gonna have to fix that. And it's funny because I saw a lot of folks, I even saw my boy Chibi talking about how the game is 110% broken, and I agreed. The game is totally broken if someone like Maple with little to no background in gaming is able to just waltz up, break the game with her pretty simple like tank build and just destroy the game. Like Chibi pointed out, I saw lots of other people point it out, I pointed it out, and if my dumb self is pointing out the glitches in a game, or not the glitches, but the brokenness of a game, you're probably gonna want to fix it. And the developers realize, like, oh shit, we need to fix that. Like, if that were a real game, people would see what Maple is capable of in the Battle Royale and be like, she could just use that move over and over again? Like, that's a little unfair. And, like, yeah, it was. So they fixed it. I do like the idea that it was just an oversight. I saw some folks, like trying to guess that, like, maybe this was, like, a plan. Like the developers wanted somebody to break the game, and I suppose it's still early days yet, so I do feel like people breaking the game in the early days of a brand new MMO isn't like unheard of. Like builds that the developers weren't necessarily prepared for, those do crop up, and then in future patches they'll end up fixing it, nerfing certain builds, and then sort of working forward from there, just deciding like, oh, okay, this build is a little too OP, we're gonna have to make some checks and balances, make sure it's not way too OP, and that people can still keep that build while like actually other characters, like maybe somebody who wants to be more speed-based, like that they can work out, somebody like Sally. Like so that they can also be strong and competitive and yada yada. So I did like the fact that Maple gets nerfed. She's not like nerfed super hard or anything, but the idea is that she can now only use Devour 10 times a day, I believe, which I still think is kind of overpowered since Devour is basically an insta-kill move. The fact that it can work 10 times a day seems excessive. Now, I'm not, like you guys, I've said this before, and you guys know this, I'm not like the biggest MMO guy. I've played a lot of MMOs, but very briefly here and there. I've never gotten like hardcore into an MMO. Although if I did get into an MMO, I think it would be Final Fantasy. It would probably be either Final Fantasy, or I can maybe see me getting back into Warcraft. But either way, I think I probably would build something like Maple, if I'm totally honest, just because I like being like, or no, you know what? Let's be real. I'd be the white mage. I don't even know why I'm talking about this. Like, I don't even know why I'm pretending like, oh yeah, I would take Maple's moveset. But like, I would, since Maple's moveset is still OP even after the nerf, but it's slightly nerfed. It's a little bit better, but yeah, I would be the white mage of the group, I guess, because somebody's got to do it. Anyway, yes, we opened the episode, and it's like the show itself is trying to tell us, like, hey, we get it. Relax, like she's nerfed. We had to be that way for the first event, and now going forward she'll be nerfed a little bit. And I do feel like that was Onuma, the director, I feel like having that scene at the beginning and the way it was played off as more of a joke than anything, I do think that was a clever part, or a clever play on the show's part to do that, and on Onuma's part. But moving on, we gotta go ahead and talk about exploring level 1, since as Sally points out, and yes, I will be referring to them as their in-game characters from now on, just Maple, Sally. And Sally points out that she hasn't really gotten to explore level 1. She basically just hung out with Maple in the caves in the underwater section. So she hasn't really had time to really explore level 1. So she's not really thrilled about the idea of just jumping into level 2 right away. Like, they need to get there before the second event, of course. But, like, Sally wants to kind of explore level 1 a little bit. See what she missed out on. And this is where we realize that, my God, New World Online is so dang pretty. Like this world is so pretty. I would die to play this game. Like, I wish, I feel like we're close. Like, maybe not like the VR to the extent that we see in the show, but I feel like we're close to something like this. Like, a virtual world that you can walk around in. I know there's stuff like VR chat, but that's not quite what I'm talking about. I mean, like a VR version. Imagine a VR version of something like Warcraft, or like a VR version of something like Final Fantasy. Like, that's what I want. Or just basically just make New World Online. Just make New World Online. My God, this world is so pretty. I would love to just wander around in it. I probably wouldn't even really play the game the way it was meant to be played. I think I would just explore New World Online. It is so friggin' pretty. From the backgrounds that we're used to, like the starting area in level 1, to just the skill shop where they see all the scrolls on the like on the walls and stuff like that, and in shelves, and oh my God, it was super pretty. It was way prettier than it needed to be, and I was just blown away by that. Even the cafe, the food they serve at this cafe is so pretty. Like, everything about this world is pretty, especially level 1. Level 2 has a different aesthetic. We'll get there once we start talking about level 2, but I love the starting area in level 1 and the surrounding, like, forests and even like the underwater side. Like, everything about level 1 I love in New World Online. I thought level 1 was just beautiful. And give your boy some credit, I did finally go back and look up the art director, since I have the whole, at the start of the show, for some reason the art director was not listed, and now I know why, because it's Yuki Shinjo, who, from what I gather, is relatively new to the art director role, so they weren't listed previously, since they haven't really done too much. Maybe they've worked on background arts in other shows, but under a different art director. This is their first time stepping up to the plate. And Yuki Shinjo, whoever you are, my goodness, your art is so pretty. I wish I could have it framed on my wall. It's so dang pretty. But much like Sally and Maple, we're gonna have to move our way through level 1 and talk about the first meeting with Dread and Drag. And Dread we knew from the last episode. He's the cool ninja-looking dude who I was like, oh, he's in the OP. Like he's the character that I was like, oh, I recognize him. Dread and Drag basically are kind of hanging out at the cafe that Sally wanted to go into. This is where they have that, like, gorgeous-looking pieces of cake that I wish I could have. Like, it just made me, like, crave cake, and now all I want is a slice of cake. Anyway, basically they meet Dread and Drag there. And I believe it's Dread turns, and he's the first one to talk, and he's like, oh, so you're Maple, and that must be Sally, hello, blah, 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 like they're introducing themselves. And, or actually, they don't address Sally as the infamous friend. I believe later, it's one of the characters later on, I don't remember who, but one of the characters later on also notes, like, oh, so you must be Sally. So word is still traveling about Maple, and now that Sally's been hanging around Maple, of course, Sally's name's also starting to get tossed in there as well. And I really liked the scene of Dread and Drag, like, talking and hanging out in the cafe, because, again, it further fleshes out this world. We also saw, like, those two twins as well. One of my favorite things about the show is the way it's been introducing these characters as, like, players that are made to keep bumping into over time. And so it makes the cast feel like they're off doing their own stuff. Not everybody. It doesn't feel like everybody only exists to further Maple's story. It feels like everybody in this world, in New World Online, is off doing their own stuff, and when they cross paths with Maple, It's just that they're crossing paths. It's not like they're there to service specifically their story. They're just kind of carrying on doing their own stuff. And I really, really dig that. And it's the same thing with Dread and Drag. And Drag, I didn't really know. I remember him from episode 1, and he even says, like, oh, we met, like, a while ago, very briefly. You talked to a friend of mine, and she guided you towards some monsters. So, like, I know who you were. And that's the pretty blonde girl who I think is a mage of some kind, way back in episode 1, who told Maple where the monsters were in the forest. So, again, it's just this nice little moment where the group of them are talking, and Dread even says, like, hey, next time we meet, like, go easy on me. And he got what did he get? He got third or second? I don't remember. I think he got second place. And yeah, he got second place, Maple got third. And so even though he placed higher than Maple, he was still like, if we meet in this next event, like, please go easy on me. So even he's like, you're scary, and I don't really want to contend with you. But I thought it was fun. It was a nice little moment. And we also set up, what's his name here? Pain. We set up Pain as basically this, like, the guy from Spy Kids, or like Kirito from SAO, obviously. He does feel like the Kirito type, where he's this, like, wickedly OP dude who's, like, top of the game. All the other players are, like, impressed by him. He's the beater, I guess, you know what I mean? So that's the kind of dude he strikes me as. He's like the main character of his own story. And I like that, that's something that the whole cast has been doing. Like I said, like, everybody feels like the main character of their own story, just crossing paths with Maple. And Pain feels like the top of the top of the top, right? Like, he's the one who's, like, the highest in charge. He would have the most generic isekai story about him, you know, like, where he's, like, this overpowered beast who's just storming through New World Online with his cool-ass sword. Pain, I have this feeling, right? And I could be way off base. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but, like, this is just kind of the vibe I'm getting, because BOFURI's, like, it's a show that has cool fights and has some really solid character growth and little character beats for our main two so far, and even some of the background characters get, like, these, like, nice little moments. But it doesn't seem like a show that's going to take itself super seriously, as opposed to just, like, having some fun. Might have a light story, but it's mostly there to just be a fun MMO show, like a VR MMO show, and blend the worlds of, like, tech and fantasy. And so because of that, I don't really see Pain being the character that he comes across as. I have a feeling like Pain is gonna end up being like a joke character. Like, something's gonna happen where he's gonna explain, like, oh, I don't even play games that often. I had the same situation as Maple. Like, I just kind of stumbled into this. Like, I can see him either being like I don't know. I could just see him being some sort of joke-ish character. And I don't know how that would work, since, like, it's already established that he really is, like, super OP. But I have a feeling he's gonna have some sort of jokey side to him, where maybe he's also like Maple and just sort of stumbled into this build by accident. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting from Pain, only because the show itself is giving me the sort of lighthearted vibe. So I don't know, maybe he is just OP, but who knows? But after that, Dread and Drag kind of take off. They say that they're gonna go try to get leveled up for the event, whereas Sally and Maple tell them that they just kind of want to explore level 1. And so Dread, like a jerk, recommends, like, hey, you guys should go check out this spooky forest. But he doesn't tell them that it's a big spooky forest. He just tells them, like, yeah, there's a super speed scroll there. So, you know, if you want some super speed to your character, you can go into this forested area and get that. I mean, like, you know, if you want, if you girls think you can. And they're like, what was that comment about? That was weird. And so they get there, and of course Sally's like, oh my god, ghosts! Apparently Sally has a big fear of ghosts, and this is the cutest part of the whole episode. Actually, maybe not, but I am gonna make it the thumbnail because I thought it was really adorable. And it's Sally being mortified by the fact that there are ghosts. And she even has to do, like, the whole, like, this is just a game, it's just a game, it's just a game. Sally was me playing Resident Evil 2, where I'm like, it's just a game, it's just a game, the zombies can't hurt you, Mr. X isn't real, he's not actually coming to kill you. I mean, he is, but it's just a game. So I felt Sally. I felt for her in that moment. Like, that, I don't do well with spoopy situations myself, especially, even if it's in a game. Like, I just... Like, I have that same, like, I could just turn off the game. If I really have to, I could just turn it off. Like, I have that same vibe, or even she's like, I should just log off. I should log off, like, right now. You can do this without me. You don't even need me. I'm fine. I can leave. Like, I really felt bad for her. She's, like, hiding behind Maple the whole time. It was really friggin' cute. and again, just furthered the ship. And basically, long story short, they end up hiding out in this very Evil Dead cabin. It even has the basement from Evil Dead where they like have to like open the cellar door and they go down, and there's like this dude who's like been, I don't know, like tied up and tortured or whatever. And Sally's the one who ultimately heals him up to like let his soul be at peace. And that's how they get the scroll. Again, I was like, okay, that's a little bit too easy, but that's kind of the vibe that BOFURI's going for, isn't it? Like this sort of laid back, chill sort of show. It's not really content to be this like high action, deep story. So like, yeah, they get the scroll by just being nice. It's like, yeah, all right, cool. I dig that. I'm fine with that. But Sally need not fear anymore because now they get to leave the big spooky forest. Much to my chagrin, because even though I don't do well with spooky things in a video game, when it's on a screen where I could just turn the screen off, like as long as I'm not the one in the situation, I love spooky stuff. So I was kind of bummed out because the spooky aesthetic of the forest was like top tier. Again, just that's the friggin' that's the work of Shinjo. That art design, fantastic. Loved seeing the spooky atmosphere of it. But we leave the spooky atmosphere of the forest into one of the more, I'll say the second prettiest vista. Again, this episode was very pretty. The second prettiest vista, and it's the last stop in level 1, and that is the never-ending sunset area. And this is basically just here, I think, to further establish, like, Sally and Maple are like a thing. Like, that's just, I refuse to believe that these two are just friends. The amount of stuff that happens in this episode with these two involved is like, first, like Sally hiding behind Maple, like it's a friggin' horror movie, and the girl latching onto the guy's arm. That's basically the same thing that happened here, only it's Sally latching onto Maple's arm, and it's adorable. And then we get them enjoying a sunset on the beach together and taking keepsakes like it's friggin' Palpu fruit or something. And it's adorable as all hell. And then, of course, something that happens later on in level 2. We'll get to it. But yeah, like, to me, the sunset scene really felt like the show just screaming like, this is a ship. In fact, let's just go ahead and jump ahead into level 2. I'll talk about the boss and how they get to level 2 in just a second, because I just want to further emphasize the shippiness of the show and me. The fact that I definitely ship Maple and Sally. But just like, listen, they have a dinner date under the friggin' stars with wine and everything, except the wine is literally made of stardust and the food itself is pieces of the sky. It's adorable as shit. This ship is real. Like, I just need you all to understand, like, this ship is legit. I refuse to buy into any other reality. Sally and Maple is the realness, one of the ships of the season. Asteroid and Love has some other ships that are top tier. This is just a very, like, even though the season's been very, like, mind-screwy, it's also had some pretty halfway decent ships. So I approve. I sign off on the Sally and Maple ship. It's cute as shit. I like it, and I want the best for those two. But how did these two get to their starlit dinner? Well, they have to get to level 2. And in order to get to level 2, they had to go through the coolest friggin' boss yet. Now, we had the Hydra, which is cool, and we still get to see the Hydra all the time because, Maple uses it as often as she can. And then we got the under the sea boss, the Kraken-looking boss, who, again, is not technically a Kraken. But, yeah, we had the undersea boss, but this one, this, like, deer that is formed from, like, tree roots and then, like, bursts into being, this gorgeous looking deer, this like stag. It just looks so dope, and it's one of the coolest fights, and yet again, it's the same animator who animated the Under the Sea fight with Sally. I feel like this animator really likes Sally. Like, that's the vibe I'm getting, because he's animated both action scenes specifically for Sally so far. And your boy actually did his research this time. Again, I went back and looked up like who like the missing people from the staff list were, but I also had the thought of like maybe Sakugaboru will have the animated scenes with the listed animator, so I can actually credit them, and just instead of just saying in the video like shoutouts to whoever animated this, I can actually say shoutouts to Koji Ito who animated this scene. It is friggin' stellar. The boss fight is dope. Ito has this way of like these like cool impact frames with like these like pretty circles. It's just dope looking. The line art is great, and it's like some of the most action-packed stuff. When I looked up Ito's other work, the man's worked on stuff like Digimon Tri. He worked on, I believe it's, what is it, like the Wise Man's Grandchild or something, which, like, say what you will about that show's writing, but at the very least, it looked pretty. Specifically the action scenes that I saw. I didn't watch the show. I just went on Sakugaboro and checked out Ito's other work. And the man has a way with action. He is the show's designated action animator, according to the opening credits, which I can't read. I can't read kanji. I would love to learn, but at the moment I don't. I don't know how to read it, so I have to look up stuff online and go to places like Sakugaboro, which shoutouts to Sakugaboro. But yeah, it was cool. It was cool to see Ito jump back, and you could tell it's the same dude. You could just tell it's the same person who animated the underwater fight, because it has that same kinetic, wild energy with these crazy effects. Like, it just looks fantastic, and Sally just destroys this thing. Just wrecks shop. Just demolishes this thing. It's not an easy fight, which I gotta point out, and it's one of the things that I think works best about this episode as opposed to the previous episodes, is the fact that Maple isn't as OP as she once was. She even says like, oh crap, I already used Devour like 4 times. I can only use it 6 more times, and we're going into level 2. We're about to go into the second event, like, what am I gonna do? I do feel like a day passes though, so I feel like she's okay going into the second event. I feel like she should have all of the Devour skill back, so I don't know. But what I do know is that this fight is friggin' rad, and I can actually shout out the animator for once. So shout outs to Ito. My goodness, please do more action scenes and more stuff. You got serious skill, man. But with that said, that leads us nicely into hyping up the second event, and I'm just gonna be super brief about this since I've definitely gone over time on this video. Maple gets her Snow White shield, which I actually like more than the other shield, and it saves her Devouring skill. I don't think Snow White has the Devouring skill. I think she'd actually have to swap out to the other shield. But I just like Snow White aesthetically a little bit more than the other shield. The other shield looks cool, and it matches her outfit more, obviously, because it has the black and red color scheme. But Snow White, I just like that aesthetic, like the yellow like trim with the white shield. It just looks good. We get the introduction to me, not me, but like me, the character me, who apparently got, what did she get? She got 4th place in the first event. She is the leader of the Flame Emperors, and she seems like a bit of a Chunibyo, if I'm totally honest. Like, she gives a speech as though what's happening is real, which was kind of cute. I'm excited to see more from me, not me, but me. Oh, that's gonna be fun. I wonder, you know what? I wonder if somebody's gonna make her a character in Smash Brothers. Me fight her! Anyway, last thing to note is that the next event is not actually gonna be a battle royale, but instead a scavenger hunt. So that's actually kind of cool. And you can, if you get, I think it was 10 of the coins that you have to go looking for, it turns into 1 gold coin, and you can exchange those gold coins for special upgrades and armors and stuff like that. And that's really cool. I'm very much looking forward to next week. Whew, okay, I'm going to wrap up my thoughts here. I definitely feel like I went a little bit overboard on this week's episode. Apologies for that, but I'm happily going to give this week's episode a super solid B tier. I'm trying to be a little bit more strict with the ratings, and I feel like this was just a solid, good time. I really enjoy this show, and I really enjoyed this episode, and I feel like a B tier is pretty appropriate. And that's gonna do it for today's video, everybody, so I hope you guys enjoyed, and before we go, as always, I have to give a big thank you to the good folks over on Patreon, especially those in the Earl Grey tier: Andrew W., Calvin A., Crowbar of Irony, Daniel G., Digger the Fox, Dominic G., Ionos, Urza, Ginkutaku, Godzilla Fan, No For Nothing, Maria Teresa, Marshall B., Mirth Mouser, Cell, Shadow Creative, Sipco Games, Somastan, Stephen G., Sakochi, Tristan G., and Verdon. A huge thank you to all of you in the T Squadron for your continued support, and if you too would like to join the T Squadron, then be sure to check out the first link in the description to check out our Patreon page, see all the cool rewards you can get over there, as well as access to our Patreon exclusive Discord for as little as $1 a month. And with that said, we're gonna wrap up today's video, everybody, so thank you all once again for watching, and if you are feeling stressed out today, then you go have yourself a warm cup of tea and I will talk to you all again real soon.